is the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Wrubell, who actually got to call 3 goals in the first half on Monday for a BYU women's soccer team.
After calling 3 goals through 6 matches, 3 goals in about 30 minutes it was. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's nice.
Hopefully it's a sign of things to come for BYU football as well.
Yeah, good to be on with you, Spencer, and with Gilbert Gottfried as well here. Today's open was rather epic.
The dog licked my hand, it warmed me.
Yeah.
I'm molting!
There you go.
Well played, Greg.
There you go.
Well played,
Well,
man.
thanks for coming on, man. It was great to see you. Okay, we've been talking expectations, okay? 1 and 2, this is the thing BYU's done 7 of the last 12 seasons. They're playing tough schedules. Unfortunately, it's kind of a reality of the situation. What were your expectations before the season, and have those been adjusted based on the start and kind of the offensive play?
Yeah, I think I was very positive and optimistic in my preseason assessments, perhaps overly so. We'll tell at the end of September. But I thought a 3-2 or 4-1 month were possible, and I think right now those chances, certainly the 4-1, is out the window. And if Wisconsin were to beat BYU this Saturday, it wouldn't be an unexpected result, and you'd be right where you were last year. BYU was 1-3, having just lost to West Virginia. And what did they do? They went on, got a nice run, and put themselves in 9-win territory by the end of the year. So, this season schedule is a little bit different, the way it progresses in October, November. But again, if they were to find themselves in a similar situation, hope wouldn't be a loss, because we just saw recently, last season, what they did. And again, things do ease up in November. So I think expectations should be at least bowl game and win bowl game. In terms of what number that ends up being by the end of the year, 7, 8, 9, whatever. Get to bowl game, win bowl game, and those are reasonable expectations today, I think. Yeah.
If for some reason Tanner Mangum cannot play this Saturday, what do you expect from a guy like Bo Hodge if he is required to step in and face the number 10 team in the country?
Different scenario, but Mark Wilson back in 1977, which puts us, 40 years ago, I guess.
Wow.
Gifford Nielsen had gotten off to a tremendous start to the year and got hurt in Game 4, I think it was. And Mark Wilson came in having never started a game before. And what they did that week was fashion the playbook. In fact, Mark tells the story. Doug Scoville, the offense coordinator, Doug Scoville said, here's the playbook. Sticky note, if they had those, sticky note the plays you like. And Mark Wilson ended up sticky noting all the rollouts. And Scoville said, I see that you've kind of favored the rollouts here. That's kind of how I like to play. I like to play on the run. And so they basically went with a rollout-heavy offense in that first week, just playing to his strengths. And so while it's not an identical situation, ideally, if they have to go a different direction, they fashion the offense, they tailor it for what Bo would do well. And mobility is one of Bo's strengths.
Mark had the greatest single first start in BYU history.
First start, and he throws 7 touchdowns against Colorado State.
The next game, he throws 6 picks.
And BYU still won.
BYU still won that game 10-7.
If you go back to the the 70s, it's fun. If you go back to the 70s and take a look at the week-by-week turnover numbers, they were just ridiculous. I mean, they were a cost of doing business. When BYU was throwing it as much as it was back then, that was just the way. And they won with 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 turnover games all the time. The turnover numbers were huge back then. It was just the way, Ty threw a ton of picks, but he threw even more touchdowns. That was just the way it was.
Yeah.
The running back situation on Saturday is interesting for a couple of reasons. Because of the ties that Ula Tolutau has to the University of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Originally committed there out of high school to Gary Anderson. Gary leaves for Oregon State, comes to BYU to play for Kalani Sitake, and now Coach Sitake says essentially he's the guy. What kind of expectation is fair for Ula Tolutau, who we're not sure is 100% against that Wisconsin front?
Yeah, so for that reason, I don't know what is fair to say what the expectations are, because if he were full go 100%, he's your workhorse, and I say let's give him 20 carries, 20, 25 carries, and let it roll. But, seeing as after he scored the touchdown, he had just 1 carry in the final 25 minutes of the game, we are probably bringing him along a little more slowly. So you could still see a committee approach until and if he gets full go. But I think it'd be fun to see him at full go, wouldn't it? I mean, just the burst he gave BYU in the 4 or 5 plays he ran, something different was happening there, and that was exciting.
Thomas Schoaf was interviewed yesterday or 2 days ago in the press conference, and when Ula Tolutau was mentioned, he just lit up. He just got excited. So let's see what Ula can do. Now offensively, BYU has struggled. If a different quarterback's in there, I don't think anyone cares right now who it is. Just that offense happens at this point, right?
something has to improve in the attack, and however it happens, just let it happen. And because the numbers right now are not sustainable. You're not going to be the 8-9 win team you hope to be if you still languish in those current rankings by the end of the year. Of course, schedules played a lot into it. With the last 2 weeks and 2 excellent defenses, they'll probably be probably maybe the 2 best defenses BYU sees this year. Tough to tell what we can expect from Mississippi State yet, and Boise's always been stout. But I think the numbers again through 3 games are just a tad skewed because of the caliber of offense. It's much easier to tell 9 or 10 games in where the real BYU offense is. But I don't think anybody over there would say that what is happening right now is long-term sustainable.
Yeah, we asked Robert and I can't even remember what year it was, 2015 or something, 2014 maybe, how long it takes for you to feel like you know what you have with the offense. He said 6 games. We're only 3 through. Do you think that Wisconsin is better than LSU? How do you see it?
I can't say yet. They're a top 20 team in scoring offense and scoring defense. They ran for 357 last week. They stopped the run. They were only allowing about 95 yards a game on the ground, and BYU's running for about 75 a game on the ground. So Wisconsin looks legit. I don't know if they have a Darius Geis, but they may have 2 guys that between the 2 of them are just as good than Darius. I mean, they had got to run for 200 plus last week, Jonathan Taylor, and that's a freshman. That's a true freshman running for 200 plus, playing because Bradrick Shaw can't play. So they're clearly stacked and loaded, and the offensive line is the offensive line, even with some bang. So that's one kind of interesting thing for this week is Wisconsin's O-line's a little banged up. We'll see who starts and doesn't, but I don't anticipate too much of a drop off in depth for Wisconsin. And after the game, we'll be able to say if they're better than LSU or not. But they look to be worthy of their ranking. BYU's offense through 2, let's call just the FBS games right now. Their play success rate, I think, was 24% against LSU, about 46% against Utah. You want to be in the 50s. To say that your offense is doing well, you want to be around or above 50% on play success rate.
How do you define play success rate?
Play success rate is 40% of your yards needed on first down, at least 50% of your yards needed on second down, and then converting a third or a fourth down. That's a successful play.
Okay.
And LSU and Utah were in the high 50s and high 60s against BYU. So, that's again, those are not good trends. The teams playing BYU are really staying on schedule and cooking, and BYU's just not into any rhythm right now. And so play success rate's a pretty good indicator of who's going to win the game, and it's played out in the games BYU's played against FBS teams so far. And we talked last week about, statistical indicators, and, the big 3 for me, and you can pick a number of, 3 important categories. Mine are average starting field position, turnover margin, and third down conversion percentage. BYU won just the 1 category against Utah, third downs, as it turned out. And the other 2, they didn't. And if you're only winning 1 of 3 categories, you're probably not going to win the game. You may have a shot, and BYU did have a shot, got the ball late with a chance to win, but you're probably not going to win most of those games. And so those are 3 categories I look to because so many different factors play into those 3 numbers. So I think they're pretty good numbers to look to and hold to as you move on.
Greg Wrubell with us in Studio B on BYU Sports Nation, previewing BYU in Wisconsin. The first time a Big Ten team has ever visited Lavelle Edwards Stadium.
Yeah, back when Penn State came, that was the year before they began Big Ten competitions. That was their last year as a football independent. They'd already begun the transition into the league, but that year they played as an independent. Next year they were a full-fledged Big Ten football member. So that was the year before they joined the league. So yeah, first ever.
That's pretty cool. And Michigan State will be here in a couple years. This is a big opportunity for BYU.
Yeah.
17-point dog, kind of. In what scenario do you see BYU be able to somehow win this game?
Well, it's an altitude game, and in the heat of the day, I'm not sure how hot it's going to be. Actually, I think their forecast calls for some cooler weather, but it's an unfamiliar spot for Wisconsin. You look at Wisconsin's record; they don't play a lot of true away non-conference games, especially this far away from home. And last time they came out west, they lost in the Mountain Time Zone or Pacific Time Zone. It's an interesting trip for them, an unusual trip. It's just a factor. A lot of things would have to go well for BYU to win this game. Clearly, we wonder, what does BYU do better than Wisconsin right now? And statistically, Wisconsin's favored in almost every single category there is. One thing BYU hasn't done yet is put the ball on the ground. They haven't lost a fumble yet. Wisconsin's lost 3 fumbles already, and turnover margin is a big stat. So BYU hasn't put the ball on the ground yet. Wisconsin has. A couple special teams numbers in which BYU is a little better. Kickoff return defense, net punt, and those play into field position too. So, yeah, let's see. But a lot would have to go right, clearly. You're a 17-point underdog at home. means you're probably playing a top 10 team, and that's what Wisconsin is right now.
That's exactly what's happening. All right, Greg, as with tradition, every time you come and hang out with us in Studio B, it's time for a cool thing about Canada.
And as always, a bit of a caveat. The word cool we use liberally. I mean, some weeks...
Plays into the weather up there.
Some weeks it may be a kind of a cool, and some weeks it's just something about Canada. And we try and make it cool, but, you know, sometimes it's a swing and a miss. So... We love to play the hockey up in Canada, right?
Hockey,
yes.
But we also love the curling. Okay.
Yeah.
One of my routines as a kid was putting myself in front of the TV and watching curling right before hockey night in Canada. Okay, so that was kind of the big Saturday night doubleheader for me: some curling and some hockey.
Yeah. Okay.
So love the curling. My dad was on a team when I was a kid. Most of the stuff most of our appliances in our home were things he won as a curler. So what I'm doing today is introducing a new word to your vocabulary.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what do you call a bunch of teams that play a weekend of games? It's a tournament, right? It's
Yeah.
curling.
Yes.
Oh no, curling has its own term. Okay, a curling tournament is called a bonspiel. A bonspiel. A bonspiel. Yeah. So most of my weekends as a kid, I would be joining my dad and watch his teams play in a weekend bonspiel. So there you go. Curling tournament is a bonspiel. So bonspiel is our word of the day. B-O-N-S-P-I-E-L, bonspiel. You'd like to use it in other settings, but it is just in curling. But see if you can fit it in.
That is
All right.
cool because it's on ice and it's curling. Greg, fantastic stuff. Thanks, man.
All right. See you next Wednesday.
Bonspiel.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Use it again. Try and slip it into other conversations.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll use it later in the show. I
All right.
promise.
We
Okay.
need to have a bond spiel with the
Yeah.
Nintendo and NBA Jam.
The BYU offense needs to have a bond spiel and get it together. Yeah,
Indeed.
exactly.